Have you noticed now anything and anyone, they call themselves Christians? You will have a gay parade.
That's right.
And over 85% of the homosexuals will say we're Christians. Ask yourself, viewers, why T.D. Jakes don't say nothing about homosexuality, same-sex marriages, men with men, women with women? Think. Why don't he say nothing? He's busy flapping his hands around. Why don't he say nothing? Either you are against it or you condone it. If you are against wrong, you'll speak out against the wrong. I forgot the gentleman's name. A journalist gave an interview to Jakes. No, not Pierce Morgan. And he asked Jakes a question. Can homosexuality, in fact, the interview is on YouTube. Can homosexuality and the church coexist? Jakes didn't stutter. He said, why, certainly. Then Jakes said, there's many ways. There's a whole lot of ways to get to God.
A question coming in from Black 185 in our digital community said, do you think, I'm assuming, LGBT community and the black church can coexist?
Absolutely.
Let me push that question, because that's sort of an obvious yes. Church ain't turning nobody away. How should the black church and LGBT community exist?
I think it's going to be diverse from church to church. Every church has a different opinion on the issue, and every gay person is different. And I think that to speak the church, the black church or white church or any kind of church you want to call it, are all the same is totally not true. And all gay people are not the same. The types of relationships that are forwarded are based on the types of people in each individual case. Yeah. And LGBTs of types and sorts have to find a household of worship that reflects what your views are and what you believe like anybody else. And the church should have the right to have its own convictions and values. If you don't like those convictions and values, you totally disagree with it, don't try to change my house, move into your own and establish that sort of thing and find somebody who gets what you get about faith. And trust me, I've talked to enough LGBT, they are not all the same.
Oh, for sure. Any more than all Christians.
No.
But how do we, first of all, has your thinking evolved on this?
Evolved and evolving. Evolved and evolving.
Where were you and where are you?
I think that where I am is to better understand, the church bought into the myth that this was a Christian nation. And once you get past that, which a lot of people are going to criticize me because they're still going to think it's a Christian nation, which is a whole different show. But once you begin to understand that democracy and that a republic actually is designed to be an overarching system to protect our unique nuances, then we no longer look for public policy to reflect biblical ethics. If we can divide, or what you would call separation of church and state, then we can dwell together more effectively. Because atheists, agnostics, Jews, all types of people, Muslims pay into the government then cannot reflect one particular view over another just because we are the dominant group of religious people in the country, because those numbers are changing every day. We need a neutralized government that protects our right to disagree with one another and agree with one another.
So that covers what happens outside the church.
Right.
Inside the church, has your thinking biblically, scripturally, hermeneutically shifted at all? And the reason I ask that is because I talk to a lot of ministers now, and there was that big conference in South Africa in the last couple of weeks where people from all over the world were there, and this was one of the issues that came up along with race and other things. And one of the questions was, is there a way to approach Christian tradition, Christian scripture, in light of a new understanding of LGBT? For example, 18th century, there might have been a particular understanding of what slavery meant in relation to Paul, in relation to the New Testament, et cetera. That has shifted to the point that it is socially accepted that irrespective of what text says literally, we don't support slavery as a body, right? And even though it varies church, most churches don't support slavery. Right. Might be a few out there that do. We don't get invited to those. But similarly, there's room for that same kind of shift.
I think that shift has to go on behind the closed doors of the church, because I think in the mainstream America, anybody who doesn't agree with you, we have a derogatory name to call you. And I think it oversimplifies the complexity of text. The fact that you have fidelity to the scriptures as you have been taught does not mean that you're necessarily homophobic or any other kind of phobia. But yet in mainstream America, anybody who doesn't line up with a particular worldview, we give them a name to ostracize them, much like we were given names to ostracize us. This name calling does not depict the struggle that many people have theologically. I think the argument has to be theological and not sociological. The fact that the world has turned that way doesn't mean that the word has changed that way. The argument for clergy, fundamental clergy, has to be a theological argument. It cannot be a sociological one.
If I wasn't out of time, I would push you on this. And one day I'm going to bring you back just to talk about this, because I'm fascinated by your take on it. And I want to not just challenge you on it, I want to understand your thinking on this, because the thing I appreciate about you most is that you operate in good faith. You're honest, you're transparent, and about your struggle with these things, and about your convictions about
Well, it's a complex issue. It's a real complex issue, and it was in the Bible days. Sexuality versus spirituality. Paul spends a lot of time wrestling back and forth, trying to understand, should a woman wear her head covered? Should you cut your hair? I mean, they grappled back then, and we're grappling now, because we are humans, and we are flawed, and we're not God. Once you understand you're not God, you leave yourself an out clause to grow.
I know that's right.
Yeah, to grow.
You's a liar. There's one way to get to God. The Bible says a highway shall be there, and a way, and that way shall be called the way of holiness. These men, they hate the Bible. So this is why you see the potter house, but God is going to crack that pottery. Many ways to get to God. The Bible don't teach that foolishness.
Jesus saith unto him,
Listen at this.
now in the book of St. John, chapter 14, and at verse 6.
Let's compare what Jake said to what Jesus said. Give chapter and verse again.
St. John, chapter 14, and at verse 6.
John 14:26 said.
St. John 14 and verse 6.
All right, John 14 and verse 6. All right.
Jesus saith unto him,
Jesus says unto him,
I am the way.
no, I have many ways.
I am the way.
Spell way.
W-A-Y.
S.
W-A-Y.
Where's the S?
No S. W-A-Y.
T.D. Jakes is nothing but an evangelistic liar.
That's right.